All right. Welcome to SL11B Art Talks. I am here with Elicio Ember. Elicio, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me over.
I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about your shop.
Well, it's a bit of everything. My shop is called Cerridwen's Cauldron. Cerridwen is an ancient Welsh goddess of magic, and her cauldron was the cauldron of poetic inspiration. There is a beautiful legend about that. So I see my place as a place for inspiration. I focus on fantastic architecture, vegetation, and avatars now, meshed avatars. And I started with my real life paintings. I'm a real life painter. Actually, that's why I came into Second Life, because I wanted to do art that was more interactive than the paintings I was doing.
And I have several of your paintings. I love your paintings around us right now. Um, how old were you when you started painting?
Oh, well, I guess formally not that long ago, about 15 years, around 20 maybe. But I always drew as a little boy, and I was one of those kids that was always doodling in class to the dismay of my teachers. And yeah, yeah, I always had a fascination for the visual arts, especially for drawing and painting.
And who were the artists that inspired you?
Oh, well, actually, before I knew his name, I was inspired by, well, generally by all fantasy artists. Uh, and one of my main inspirations is Brian Freud. He is a fantastic painter. He did the art. Many are familiar with his art, even though they might not know his name. He's the one that made the art for The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth.
Yeah.
He, yeah, yeah, he is the designer for and he's fantastic. So he is my main inspiration. He is a great influence on my art. But now I get an influence for a lot of, especially now designing for Second Life. I get influence for a lot of sources. For the recent Fantasy Fair, for example, my main influence was surrealist architect Gaudi, with his outrageous use of form and color, and that inspired me a lot. So I must confess, I drew a bit from everywhere.
No, that's fantastic. And I have to ask, the god and the goddess on both sides, the bigger pictures here. Where did you come up with the ideas for them?
That's based on the pagan cosmogony of the God with capital letters. It's like a duality. They represent the male principle and the female principle of creation. And a pagan friend commissioned me a couple of paintings, and I knew right away what was I going to do, and well, that was the idea. I wanted to do a representation of the female principle and the male principle. If you pay attention, actually, on the chest of both the god and the goddess, you can see a very subtle symbol. One on the male, it's the symbol, the masculine symbol on many modern pagan tendencies, and on the female, it's the female symbol, which also represents the moon for the female principle.
Oh, yeah. Well, those
Yeah,
are fantastic.
I thank you very much. I like very much symbolism. So many of my builds and paintings have hidden symbols to them. Well, some not so hidden, but I do love symbolic representation.
So when you came in for the art, had
Mhm.
you done 3D building before?
No, not ever. I had tinkered with some sandbox games. I'm a gamer, and
Okay.
yeah, so I had tinkered with The Sims actually. No, so I knew the idea of moving and placing around things, but that was it. I had to study around a year and a half before because I knew I wanted to do professional level designing. I just didn't want to make it for a hobby. I knew from the start that I wanted to create something professional looking that I could share with people. So it took me a while. I had to first study the Second Life building interface, then the programming language, and from there I started. I was fortunate that I came in with the sculpting wave. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so I had to learn to use the 3D modeling programs. It was a bit daunting at first, I must admit, but I'm very happy with it now. It's a lot of work, but it's fun work.
And the two little guys behind us
Hmm?
are
Oh
examples
yeah,
of some of the latest work in your avatars.
yes, yes. Those were inspired. As I said, I was a gamer. I am a gamer, and I get inspired by good design. So I saw something in a game that inspired me. It gave me the idea of doing elemental creatures. The little creatures behind us are the static versions of the avatars. They are called tinderlings, and because they are supposedly formed from parts of tinder and the life energy of the ecosystem they inhabit. So they are formed by bits of wood, bark, mushrooms, and so on. They are supposed to be elemental beings, fey, in other words. As I said, I love fantasy, and I do have a tendency to create fairies, fantastic beings, fantastic vegetation, and so on. Hello?
Yeah, have you found that being in here, the 3D aspects and building has helped you go in a different way with your paintings?
Actually, yes, very much so. Although it's very different doing 3D modeling, you have to adhere, especially in Second Life, that there is not going to be someone that tells you that your model has too many polygons. Uh, there are some modeling out there that has way too many polygons. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that causes lag. So one, as a designer, one has to be very conscientious. It's very different indeed, but it's special work and it's creative work. So it has helped me a lot in coming up with ideas for doing new things in painting and trying new color schemes and new styles of doing things. And especially, it has opened my work to a worldwide public. I live in Mexico, and the the public for the kind of work I do, there is a lot, but it's not easy to reach. So exposing my work through Second Life has given me a world audience, and that's something I'm very grateful for.
So it's helped you sell your artwork across the world.
Yeah, yeah, that's. I haven't been able to paint as much on the last couple years because with all the changes that have come to Second Life, I often tell my real life friends and family that designing for Second Life is a bit like being a doctor or being on the game industry. Things are always changing. You have always to keep updating with the newest releases. So actually, the last year and a half, it's I have spent most of my time learning mesh, learning what are good levels of detail modeling, learning how to use the materials texturing. It's a lot of work, but I must say I'm very happy with it, even though my real life painting has suffered a bit for it. But fortunately, some of my friends and patrons have asked me when I'm going to start painting again because they want now a painting on real life from my work, which is which is astounding to me.
So I'm curious, the process that you take, do you, because you're a painter and an artist, do you draw it on paper first and then create it in 3D?
At times, not always. For example, with avatars and plants, yes, I do sketch. Um, but usually, first, I do a lot of research. Um, Besides being a scientist, I have a bachelor's degree in oceanography. So I do have a very scientific mind as well. I know it sounds contradictory. To me, it isn't. To me, each complements the other. So at first, I do a lot of research. If I'm doing a plant, uh, I if I do a plant, I try to research real life equivalents of it and color schemes. If I'm doing architecture, I research uh, different styles or the history of the architecture, and then I begin sketching. After that, I begin building, and that part is very, very intuitive. I rarely know what will come out at the end. Things often change before the end. Uh, but my muse is a bit fidgety, so I try to follow my intuition.
So an SL, you said you were a gamer. Do you feel
Yeah.
like you're creating a game now? I mean, you're literally creating an atmosphere that people get immersed in.
Yes, not precisely. It's difficult to explain. Of course, people inside Second Life will know very well what I'm talking about. To someone outside Second Life, yes, it's somewhat like a game, but it's so much more. It's not just a game. In a game, usually even the best of games, you have a set path. What you can do is limited. On Second Life, no, you can do anything, both as a designer and as a player, as a user, as a customer. You can create whatever you want. Of course, you need patience and tenacity, uh, but so you do for everything else. So although it's somewhat like a game, I do think it's much more than that. It's I what I thought when I came into Second Life was, wow, can I really create 3D versions of my paintings, of things I can imagine? Can people interact with them, modify them to suit? Because I create my perms are usually copy, mod, no trans, and I do so on purpose because I want to see what people create. I just don't want. I get great feedback from the modifications people do to my work. They're not just taking what I give them. They're taking it, transforming it to suit their own vision, and they give it back to me in images, or they invite me over, or they give me landmarks, and that's a great privilege. That's a privilege that a painter does not usually have. When someone hangs a painting in a gallery or in an exhibit, people go see it, and if the artist is lucky, he will hear honest opinions about what was done. But here it's so much more. People can show what is that they felt with what you were giving them, by giving you back something, and that's, to me, that's amazing. That's a great privilege.
Yeah, it's like instant appreciation of your work, and it's collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I love painting, but that's something different that you do not get on painting.
So, what's one of the most interesting mods that you've seen of one of your pieces?
Oh wow, it's very difficult to I literally I must have gotten hundreds of landmarks by now. I have been here in Second Life more than 7 years now, doing landscape at least 4 or 5, and I have gotten hundreds of photographs, landmarks. Some people have done paintings based on the modification, paintings in real life on the modifications they have done of my work in Second Life. So that's that's astounding. Going to sims where they get uh, they create a complete
Inspiration.
atmosphere. Yeah, yeah. It's very difficult to pinpoint one. To be honest, I appreciate very much each and every one. It gives me the juice, so to speak, to continue designing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So, what's next for you?
Well, first of all, I have to finish the fairy court for the Fantasy Fair this year. I designed and sponsored uh, a sim, a complete sim, and I did the fairy court. And I'm doing the retail version of many of those builds, which are, as I mentioned, inspired in the two fairy courts, the silly and unsilly, and with a visual style very akin to Gaudi's surrealist architecture. I am going to finish that. I am also working on. I think it must be one of the largest trees Second Life has seen so far. It's almost the same wide tree with 180 meters tall, and I'm also working on the final version of that. And after I finish that, I'm going to finally remodel the ground level of my sim, which I have been trying to remodel for for months now. But to be honest, I'm always very busy. Something always gets in the way, and it's overdue. I'm looking forward to it now that I have a very there's something always new to learn, but I understand pretty well the materials and mesh mechanics, and I'm looking forward to the effects I can do on a sim scale without restriction. The fantasy, although I do design for the fantasy fair, there's always, and we have a lot of free reign. We do have to adhere to certain limitations. So I'm looking forward to take time and take it easy on doing a ground level uh, aside to feel completely satisfied with it. The first time I designed the ground level of my sim, it took me around 3 months. So I'm thinking, fortunately, now the store, and also a lot of ground to explore of my store is floating. So I have 2 levels. I can keep the floating level open. I get a lot of visitors, and I can close the ground level so I can design it to take full advantage of the beautiful. Well, I do think it's beautiful. The beautiful material, bump mapping, and the specular, the shiny, and transparencies, and the great things now uh, can be done with mesh. There are many things I had wanted to do before, but Second Life was not capable of. We didn't have the programming and the uh, well the platform necessary for doing them. Now we do. Uh, we can do. I have seen lately some of the designs can easily compete with some of the best video games out there. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I got to tell you, I remember one of the first times I came to your store. I had
Hmm.
actually seen, and I'm not going to remember what it's called, but you're walking along the ground and it closes up on you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
It's the carnivorous plant, the dragon jazz plant. Yeah.
yeah, that one. And I was on someone's sim and that thing attacked me and it scared me like, it totally caught me off guard. And then when I came to your sim and walked across the little fountainy pond thing right there in the entrance area, and the water makes the ripples around you as you're walking across. I thought, this is like dreamy. This is like being in a dream. This is fantastic.
Thank
So
you very
thank
much.
yeah, and thank you for creating, things out of my dreams that I didn't even imagine yet.
Thank you. Yes, that's something I have been told before, and it's a great compliment that my work has this dream quality, that the same has this dreamscape feeling to it, and well, I can hardly think of a better. I can hardly think something that would flatter me more than for people to tell me that I'm doing the stuff of dreams. That's something I humbly uh, feel very grateful for.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today here at Art Talks, and we look forward to seeing more of your creations.
Yes, of course. It's my pleasure being here, and also I must confess that I'm very proud to be around for this Second Life 11th anniversary. It's incredible to think it's 11 years already. I can still remember when what I called the Wild West years, and well, when I came around, it was already 3 years in. But I remember still the box avatars, and it's incredible to think how long has Second Life been around and how strong is it going.
Yeah, and what's something that you would say changed the most from the first time? Like, can you remember like when you first came to SL? What was your awe moment?
Oh yes, yes. As I mentioned, I didn't start actually before I start studying and learning the techniques. I took the time to visit all the relevant places, and I must confess, it must have to be that I deal with color and form. I'm terrible for names and dates. I always forget names and dates, but I remember visiting some of the old fantasy style full sim installations and being completely in awe. I remember also visiting the uh, then it was called Burning Life,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, that was one of my first drop jump moments as an artist. The first couple of years I went to Burning Life, I was still very green. I didn't have anything to put on. And I remember my jaw dropping to the floor, thinking, wow, there's real talent here. There's real potential. There's real creativity. There's so many talented people here. That's one of my drop jam moments. And the other is
Yeah.
how generous creatives are here. It's first of all, it takes a lot of time. Second, it's incredible how being now in the fantasy fair, I have known many designers of all styles, and it's incredible. If you are respectful and you are friendly, you can chat with anyone about anything. There's very few people that will tell you, no, that's a secret, I won't tell you, find it your way. I can only imagine. I wish that was so in real life too, for you to approach someone and ask them, how did you do this, or can you point me this way, or do you have a recommendation? Some of my friends, we are direct competitors. We create the same kind of things, and we are friends and good friends. We are close friends. I wish that's something that real life could learn from Second Life. No, we each have our aspirations and our ambitions and our imagination, but that doesn't get on the way of us being friends.
Right. Yeah, that is something magical about Second Life is that people do collaborate and share and want to share.
Yeah.
And that's very special.
Yes. I completely agree, and it's a very egalitarian place. Of course, there will always be the exceptions, or there will always be someone trying to take advantage. But as being as having a brand for so long now, I can say happily that that is the exception to the rule. Many people care for your work and take care of your work, take care for you. You can learn from that, and you can learn from what others are doing. Uh, I think that's a great example for real life.
Now we just got to get the word out there so people come in and figure it out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. No, and I do actually. I've had several of my real life friends come into Second Life because they're curious about what I'm doing. I send them the links to my Flickr group where people around the grid take snaps, and they come in because they want to know what's that thing that looks so amazing. Yeah,
And you built it yourself.
exactly. And anyone can do so. Anyone can do so. That's something that uh, people tell me. Well, I don't know how to. Well, I didn't know either. I came into Second Life without knowing anything about 3D, anything at all, nothing. And I have had no teacher in real life. I had not taken a course. Yes, when I decided I wanted to learn, I did look for good tutorials, for good sources, but anyone can do so, and that's what I tell people. Anyone can do so if you give it if you want to, and you give it a time, and you have the discipline to learn. Anyone can do so.
Yeah, I have a question from Faye in the audience, and they want to know when you look back at your old work and now
Hmm.
at your most recent stuff, are you blown away by how far you've come?
Yeah, I do. It's very looking out at old work is something difficult, both in Second Life and in real life. Da Vinci used to say that a work of art is never finished; it's only abandoned. And I completely agree. When I look at my old work, I always want to go tinkering with. I always want to go tinkering with it. I always want to do changes to it, and with all that I have learned. That doesn't mean I don't like it, that I don't respect it, that I don't appreciate it. I do, but I always want to do a newer, better version with the tools I now know.
Well, thanks again for coming. We're going to wrap this Art Talks up for today, and I wanted to tease that um, we will be here tomorrow with Ginger Lorikeet, and I don't know if you guys know her work, but she creates 3D pictures that you as an avatar can click and sit on and become immersed into the picture. So it looks like a framed piece of work, and all of a sudden you're in the framed piece of work. So it's quite fun, and she's going to tell us about her inspirations for those tomorrow. So we will see you here tomorrow. And Safia, you have something coming up next?